23 minutes now to 8 is the time. Time to find out what's in the morning press today. This morning's guest reviewer on the programme is David Wood, and David works for Railtrack in the Midlands and lives in Stoke-on-Trent. David, good morning to you.
Good morning.
What's the first story that's caught your eye then in the morning papers this morning?
Well, the first story this morning that caught my eye was in the Daily Mail, and is the headlines that prosecutor aces brat Noel Gallagher. This is a story about the fact that Noel Gallagher said that taking drugs is as normal as getting up and having a cup of tea in the morning.
That's right.
And a number of people seem to think that he should be prosecuted for inciting people to take drugs.
This is a story that broke yesterday, of course, and some people were saying as the day went by yesterday that maybe his comments have been taken out of context, but certainly some MPs, and that's what this story is all about this morning, some MPs are now saying that he should be prosecuted, as you quite rightly say, for really suggesting that other people might do the same. But I'm not quite clear myself whether he actually meant that. It's all very confusing, and I think maybe the messages that he was sending out yesterday have been interpreted in different ways, because I know that one of the tabloids, for example, this morning is actually supporting what he was saying yesterday. But anyway, I'm sure this story will go on and on. Let's move to The Guardian next, and a story about public sector pay.
Yes, The Guardian has an article, as do some other papers, that Kenneth Clarke is proposing that the public sector pay should be slightly above the inflation rate, whereas the Labour Party are proposing that it should be the same as the inflation rate. I think there's a point here, as far as I'm concerned, that particularly where nurses are concerned, there have been public review bodies over the past which are supposed to be adhered to their recommendations and to avoid industrial action, whereas it becomes expedient to in fact pay below those rates. And I think if we're going to have review bodies and no strike agreements, then we must observe the recommendations that are made.
What's the point of having public review bodies if pay review bodies if their recommendations aren't stuck to, as you say?
That's right.
And The Guardian here is certainly interpreting this as being a high risk pre-election gamble.
Yes, I think politics are being brought into it pre-election, which is unfortunate.
Okay, let's stay with the Guardian. I know this one's again in most of the papers this morning, but this is an end to the road protest in the southwest, isn't it?
Yes, this is fascinating, really, because the degree to which people have gone to protest against the roads with the tree houses and the tunnels, which seem to be a major construction job in their own right, and I think it is quite fascinating. Again, there's the point about how far do you take these protests, and what should be done about the road building programme anyway. We have this problem that's coming out more and more, that building roads just creates more traffic, and of course we're destroying the environment. We need to get a real balance between what should be where we should build roads and where we should preserve.
And of course we should all use the rail, shouldn't we?
Of course, yes, yeah. I'm all for that.
Do you actually? You work in Birmingham, I
yes.
think, don't you? Although you live in Stoke-on-Trent.
Yes.
Do you travel to work on the train?
Yes, oh yes.
No other form of transport?
Well, no. I mean, to be quite honest, I don't think there's a better form of transport between Stoke and Birmingham, because the M6 is an absolute nightmare.
You're absolutely right, because it does actually clog up, doesn't it? Yes, southbound on the M6
yes.
from about the Stafford Junction from
That's
about
right.
7:30 each morning.
Between Stafford and Birmingham is now supposed to be worse than the M25, which of course is the world's largest car park.
Absolutely. Yeah. Anyway, so Swampy, who is the last protester, that was his nickname, he has been pulled from the tunnels, and as you say, an amazing construction feat, really, the way that those tunnels were actually built under the ground there. Let's move to the Express, and this is day 2 of the unlawful wedding story, isn't it? This is the bogus vicar story.
Yes, I'm wondering whether I couldn't start a new career in this, because having been an altar server for over 30 years myself, I've never tried taking a wedding yet. So I just wonder whether there's a potential here. Yes, it's a very unfortunate story in one way. These people have been upset. I think the young man himself was trying to help. They've got a situation where a couple is in church and there's nobody there to take the service. And he thought he'd get on with it, and one can sympathise with him. I suppose that, as everybody says, the civil law doesn't recognise the wedding, I'm not sure that the law of God wouldn't recognise the wedding, because here, after all, are a couple who've made their vows before God, and they didn't know that the man taking the wedding wasn't a priest, and I suspect that in the eyes of God the wedding would be recognised.
It's a very interesting point. Anyway, the bogus vicar has been unmasked, as the paper here says. He's a student, he's Stephen Grant, he's 20, and there are quotes from his friends saying that really he's not a practical joker. They say he's more like a sort of Mr. Bean character, stumbling across things, and they reckon that he did it not for a laugh or anything like that, because he was simply trying to help.
That's right.
Which could well be the case. Now then, The Independent is next, and a story about air quality.
Well, air quality is a great concern these days. And particularly in cities with the fumes from traffic, etc. But this isn't actually the air quality has worsened. It's in actual fact that the goalposts have been changed as to what is an acceptable air quality. They've in fact tightened the regulations. So the implications of that, of course, is vehicle manufacturers will have to tighten their procedures. And in fact, it mentions here at the end, I think it's got off the copy here, that the Routemaster buses in London being renovated because, being very old, they're probably worse than a lot of other vehicles, and they're trying to upgrade them to meet new air quality standards.
Some of those buses, as you say, are very, very old.
About 30 years old, some of them.
Yeah. I don't know how that's going to...
They're good buses, of course.
I don't know how that's going to affect trains, of course. I don't know whether there might be any implications there for diesel trains or anything like that.
Well, diesel trains are a similar sort of thing. A lot of the diesel trains are pretty old these days, but we are getting into a situation now where we're buying new ones, or at least the train companies are buying new ones, and the technology improves and you get better emission quality.
Let's finish our little review of the morning papers by looking at the Times, and bad news for John Major if he happens to pick up the Times to read while he's eating his cornflakes this morning.
Yes, it's 25 points. Labour's lead going up 25 points seemed to be quite a substantial increase.
This is the latest Murray poll, isn't it, being published in the Times?
To what extent one relies on these polls, or I don't know. They can change very rapidly.
Well, they've been proved wrong so many times, haven't they? Especially before the last few elections. I mean, they have been dreadfully wrong. Yes. It makes you wonder why the papers continue to publish these polls, actually, because they seem to be so unreliable. Do you take much notice of them or not?
I suppose you take a general notice of them. There must be some truth in them, but I don't think they're as accurate as the papers like to make out that they are. And
they're an indicator.
They're an indicator. I think you've got to take it like that. I mean, the famous one that went wrong was the American election, wasn't it? The Truman election. That was absolutely disastrous for the polls many years ago.
Absolutely right. But anyway, I think we'll see one or two more polls before
I'm sure we shall.
We'll
probably fed up with polls by the time of the election.
David, thank you very much indeed. You're off to catch the train down to Birmingham now,
yes,
are you?
Yes.
All right. Well, we hope it's not late anyway. I'm sure it won't be.
Very rarely is.
I'm sure it won't be. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Okay, thank you.
David Wood, who works for Railtrack in the Midlands, and he lives in Stoke-on-Trent. It's 14 minutes to 8. We'll take a look at this morning's news headlines now. Bus services in South Cheshire could be cut because of a £100,000 overspend after the County Council agreed to help.